Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Yeah. Find your path with the knowledge of others and become an illuminator for those who struggle. Guide their way just by being true, and being in alignment because it comes naturally to you. On self-discovery wisdom, we share to find inspiration with lessons for millions. We hope you listen.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul, right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Janet Schwartz. And we're going to be talking about a book that she has written called The Last Summer with Oscar, The Adventurous True Story of Love and Courage. We all need those kind of stories of love and courage because we're all on that discovery of what is our courage to find love. She says she is forever a believer in the potential for humanity. She wants to help you, your family, your community, your state, your country, and all nations. As authentic human beings, we yearn for authentic connections, and we may discover them in random moments throughout our day. Her hope is to awaken our need to attach to another one, to awaken our want in every authentic other, to cultivate an interest in expressing authentic caring and conversational art form. To draw each other, a new day presents an abundant opportunities for us to bring new energy to the forefront. One way to begin anew is by understanding our treasure of intelligence. By feeding our mental, emotional, spiritual intelligences and making them work together, we will begin to view ourselves with love and those who help us through the lessons of possibility rather than through the lenses of limitations. Tapping into your authentic intelligence, AI, is the only way to have the clarity of knowing you need to live your full potential and enjoy emotional well-being. And these improvements, how we treat each other, the quality of our solutions, our problems are more on the horizon. It's about rising up, standing tall, raising your voices as we work one on one, family by family, community by community, state by state, nation by nation, to build a world unafraid to answer the call. So apropos for right now. She currently serves as president of Forensic Behavioral Scientists for Forensic Fraud Researching, a nonprofit for investigating firms that become affected by the National White Collar Crime Center in 2003 to protect confidentiality of sources and colleagues. She is the only face associated with the firm, and through the organization is comprised of many skilled professionals along with federal, state, and other authorities. She is an author and a speaker, but I want to dive right in to all this wonderful thing about our spiritual intelligence. You don't hear too many people speak about it.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that intelligence is this little thing in our noggin up at the top of our shoulders, and they don't realize our heart, our soul, our spirit has an intelligence, and that when we get out of our head and we trust that intellect, which is our wisdom, it guides our knowledge to what we need to know when we need to know it. So I am all for this conversation, Jen.
Oh, it's a joy to be with you, Sarah, and a warm hello to you and your listeners from Ohio, USA. Mhm.
And yes, they have snow, but not the big
Yes.
snowstorm. But it kind of upon a weather on what's going on today. We do have to weather the ups and downs. But I think for so long we've been taught just to use your head. We hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Use your head, use your head. Our heart, our soul, our spirit is screaming at us. No, don't go that way. But the intellect and what we've been taught is says go that way. And everything else says, no, no, no. You're only going to get the cosmic 2x4 if you go that way. Listen in to walk out. But it's so hard for people to listen into their beautiful divine intellect, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's intimidating. And I
Mm,
think that some of us that grew up, in my case, I've had a life of overcoming.
mm,
So that has been my way of life, and it's been my way of training.
Mm.
So from a young child on, I was exposed to people who were gifted in spiritual intelligence. And these were my elementary school teachers
Mhm.
who were highly intelligent, creative, and they knew how to love children in a completely comprehensive
Yes.
way. And so that gave a foundation of connection where I truly grew up believing, and I still do believe this, that God is my father.
Mhm.
And we know that those of us who have developed a spiritual intelligence realize that, yes, this is the wonderful message for all of us. But
Mhm.
when we start living and understanding spiritual intelligence, then we are able to break it down and say, wait a minute, what is spiritual intelligence? It is a connection to the spiritual world around us.
Yes.
And it might be a religious connection,
Mhm.
but spiritual intelligence is about spirituality,
Mhm.
and it is defined as the soul's intelligence. It's what keeps us grounded in balance and so on and so forth. And there have been some extraordinary leaders in this field who've written wonderful books, one of whom was Dana Zohar. And uh, she has said that it's the intelligence with which we heal ourselves and with which we make ourselves whole. Excitingly, it helps us to become creative, to change the rules, and to alter situations. So you see, it is the energy.
Mhm.
Now I want to tap into other ideas when I'm saying we're able to get to this energy. You know, Sarah, I am a former elementary teacher who went on to become trained to be a family psychologist, who assumed that she would run a family therapy clinic, but I discovered some evidence, and that evidence catapulted me over into the world of white collar organized crime
Mm.
investigations.
Mm.
And that's 33 years ago. Okay. So I have known uh making it through and all of these adjustments. So you see, here I am at a stage of life where people listen to stories about
Mm.
what I went through and how did I know I was moving forward
Mhm.
toward my purpose,
Yes.
toward why I was placed here
Mhm.
on the
And that's
planet.
everybody's question, isn't it? Why am
Yeah,
I here?
right.
What am
And
I here
how
to do?
and how am I to know? When
Yes.
will I know? Who
Yes.
who will say to me, "You're doing what you should be doing"?
Mm.
And I had three conversations that led me to realize what I was doing was a little different, or maybe majorly different. And the first conversation happened when I was doing my postdoctoral internship with criminal kids at a residential treatment facility. And I was about to leave and say goodbye to these families and these children who were in for very serious crimes. Maybe they tried to murder their mother. Maybe they stole 6 to 10 cards and they were only allowed to be in a child facility because they what the chop shop was. Maybe they were a future Charles Manson,
Mm.
but they were all given a severe label. Okay, these kids, once you got to know them, you there was everything to love. And so we built up this connection. Okay, so at my on my here I was, ready to move to Ohio to meet to marry my husband, and I'm having this exit interview and saying goodbye to all these kids and families. And my supervisor said to me, Jan, what do you think it was or is about you and how you worked with these kids as a family psychologist to uh, to bring about this connection and your great results? And so here I'm looking at her puzzle, thinking, well, how would she see me working through her
Mhm.
eyes? And I was thinking about unusual things that had happened that reflected the deep trust. But at that time, I was still growing in awareness,
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, oh, I love those kids. It was such a real love. The second, and she looked at me, nodded her head, but I could tell by her eyes that she was thinking, no, there's something more here.
Yes.
The second time I had a conversation along that line was when I was in a completely different line of work, and I was in a deep conversation with federal agents regarding a very serious matter. And I was delivering more boxes of data, and the guys had their legs up, feet up on their desks. It's like the TV show. And here I come in, I'm having my suit and I'm bringing in all this data, and there's all these jokes, and they were teasing me and calling me the blonde in heels, this kind of stuff. Good collegial, positivity, joking, thinking, making us feel connected and as friends and colleagues. And they said, okay, come on, tell us about how you do your work. Why is it that every case and project you give us turns into an investigation? Okay. And at that point, I leaned in and said, it's because I have eyes that see.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have a sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that I'm now developing. I'm getting to know myself in this realm, and I am realizing that I'm noticing things and patterns that others may not um, be interested in or
Especially
able
in
to.
that world,
Yes.
especially in that world, right?
Oh,
Which
oh,
is very
yes.
kind of cut and dry. So for you
There.
to say it's the sixth sense, it's a
Yeah.
feeling, it's like,
Yes.
what? Yeah.
Yes. And they just nodded their heads
Mm-hmm.
seriously. Okay. Now, the third conversation was a remarkable moment as well. And it was, as you said, you were mentioning my first book last summer with Oscar, and I was at a point where I was promoting that, and I was having coffee with a Facebook friend who was talking to me about these creative tips that I was putting on Facebook, and he's saying, "Where are these coming from? These ideas and this energy?" And I said, I've been writing this book that was about our golden retriever's discovery of a cure for his cancer.
Mm.
All animal lovers know that when
Oh,
your
yeah.
pet, it is an anguishing time. So
Mm.
to counter that, I would post on Facebook this creative energy, and people started responding to it, much to my surprise. And people were saying, this is like a muse. You're like a muse for us, but for everyday living.
Right.
So I thought, well, I kind of like doing this too. And he said, where is it coming from? Now,
Mm.
to my great amazement, I said, Dan, and he was an Associated Press, yeah, he was a retired Associated Press bureau chief of from a very large American city. So he's making me really think about this. And I'm looking at him, and what pours out is, Dan, imagine three interrelated circles.
Mm.
If we were to draw these three circles, it would illustrate how mental intelligence,
Mhm.
or IQ, beside it, emotional intelligence, EQ, and supported, the third circle supporting the other two, is spiritual intelligence,
Yes.
or SQ. Now, that is what we're talking about now, is
Mhm.
the convergence, the
Mhm.
jewel of those three intelligence converging. And there in the center, the area of convergence, is what I call authentic intelligence, or AI plus.
Mhm.
And it creates a highly capable energy field, and from here we can not only tap into the best of ourselves, but we will, in a second's pause, know how to handle a situation, know create new ideas for problem solving, or how to get along with difficult
Mm.
people, or so on and so forth, or to help ourselves go through a hard time.
Yeah.
It is the convergence of those three intelligences that completes us, and then the joy is is as we develop those and nurture those, and as I call it, feed those intelligences, that we then grow in such a level of completion where we feel like our talents and goals are coming into a clearer, concise focus for us, where we
Yes.
say, this is where I belong. This is home.
Yes.
And it is
Yes.
the
The
sense,
core of me. Hmm.
yes, and
Yeah.
the two, mental and emotional intelligence, supported by the spiritual intelligence. So when people say, well, but okay, you grew up and had all of this spiritual support with your teachers, or I did come from a religious family, but learning about how to feel and breathe in spirituality comes from uh, a life of using
Hmm.
one's spiritual intelligence.
Yes.
And so I mentioned self awareness, and self awareness is the first keyhole that we can enjoy turning the lock and opening and learning who we are, discovering our strengths and weaknesses. And maybe there are many experiences that teach us this along the way. So it's an easy way of stepping in, but also what motivates me. Um, Being value led, we can
Mhm.
go through all of the areas, but rather than to just go through all of the areas of spiritual intelligence, I would like to say, for anyone listening that's thinking, okay, I would like to know what this feels like. Can you give
Yes.
me an idea of an experience that I could do, that I could just, I don't have to make a reservation.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
have to make a special effort. Well, I would just say, if you have a backyard, please go out to your backyard and look up at the sky
Hmm.
and look up at the clouds, and don't take them for granted,
Yes.
but
Gratitude.
notice them.
Yes.
Notice them and notice their shapes. Notice how they're moving. And then as you're doing that, you're going to see the sky. And taking a moment to say, my goodness, that is a very blue sky
Hmm.
today. Oh my goodness. And the sun, and the glorious sun pouring where I live in Ohio, we have snow, and when the rays of sun shine through the pine trees, these
Yes.
are moments where we feel
Yes.
such a connectedness to our creator,
Hmm.
to our spiritual essence, to the divine.
Hmm.
And the animals that interact with us are all a face that is filled with light and filled with a resemblance of the glory of the divine. And we know this with our dogs and pets and all of
Yes, of
that.
course.
A-
Hmm.
a-
They're already
and
living it. Hmm.
they are.
Hmm.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why we just love to hug them, or we
Yes.
feel so safe around them, is
Hmm.
we feel that they are angels in our midst. And we can begin to tap into that sense. And Sarah, there are so many of these moments in life that we feel so safe and we feel so happy when we're noticing things, or we're noticing that there's a person we can be around that just has a
Good
little bit more,
vibrations.
yeah,
Yeah.
just has more. enthusiasm, just
Yes.
has the ability to manage more difficulty without getting down and bringing others down.
Yes.
And and so sometimes we can going on and as we think about another experience where we might want to get to know the feeling of being connected to spiritual, we might say to that person, I know a lot about your life and you. How is it that you stay so cheerful?
Mhm.
How is it that you want to bring joy to every person you connect with? And then listen to what that person has to say, because there may be something in that story that say,
Yes. Yeah.
ah, I could choose that
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Maybe I'll try it.
It's
And
it's
so,
called being aware. That's the thing. Awareness. Um, with these shows, I always say, listen, learn, and apply. There's always something you listen to that you truly learn when you apply. It can pivot your own thinking, your own direction. That's what they're here for. But I'm just going to unpack a lot of what you've said here because
yes.
we're very parallel, but I use very spiritual talk
Hmm.
because I am more a spiritualist than I've ever been anything else. As kind
Ah,
of Lady Gaga says, I was born this way, right?
got it.
So what you were talking about, I call the knowingness. And it is that download that we get from the universe, God,
Mhm.
universe, source, energy, doesn't matter what you want to call it. It comes through us and it speaks
Mhm.
through our soul to our heart. Our heart feels it in truth. It then gives it to our spirit in action for our mind to know in clarity what it needs to know when it needs to know it. What we have going on in the head is data. Very often, we do not know how to use that data because it's always yes, but what if, right? But when we trust the knowingness,
Yes.
the wisdom, it's very clear what we need to do in this moment. And we don't need to verify, justify, dudify anything. It just is.
Yes.
When you make a statement of something, how do you know that? I don't know. I just know. And you
Mm.
feel it right in the very core of you. You feel it. Your body is relaxed with it. You are feeling like a deep breath and release. It just is. And as long as we don't let this intellect come along and go, yeah, yeah, but tell me
Mhm.
why, tell me why. No, no, it just is.
Right.
Take what is and follow that path. Allow yourself to go in that direction, and
Mhm.
you will start seeing things open up and reveal and things that you've looked at all your life that you've never seen that way. Things
Yes.
that you, conversations you have, people you're around that you start feeling differently around. And I say to people that want to awaken, go out in nature. Watch a dog chasing a stick. Watch a kid riding a bike or with a kite. Watch the birds up in the trees. The trees speak to you, not to
Yes.
our head. They speak to the very core of our essence. The water is conduit. It is always a current moving forward. And that we are what 70-90% water in our body, right? Our body, our oxygen, our blood flow, our chi energy must always be in flow. When it's stagnant, that's when we get into trouble. And it's find your rhythm in life. Find how is it that you receive? What do you do when you receive? How do you go about using the wisdom that you've been given to apply? Find your rhythm, find your rhyme, find your groove, find your vibe. And in that essence, you will resonate that vibe and it will attract other vibe like people that want to be around that energy that because you're igniting it in them or you're connecting it with them. And it is, as the old Beach Boys song, good, good, good vibrations.
Yes.
But we're inclined, this whole wokeism and woo woo, those are words of fear, right? They're purely words of fear because you don't want to understand it. This is where the truth really lies. This is absolutely 1000% the truth of who you are, why you are, what you're here to do, and how you are to do it. And it is so utterly divine. It is so peaceful. It is so clear. It is so rewarding. And you look at everything through the lens of gratitude,
Yes.
right? And even when you're looking at the worst of the worst, because especially as a spiritual empath, when I see what's going on out
Mhm.
there, it is their lost souls or the soulless,
Yes.
right? They haven't ignited, they choose not to.
Right.
Some people prefer to stay in victimization because it's so much easier to blame
Yeah.
everybody else.
Right.
Our journeys in life are for us to have the ups and the downs, for us to have these experiences of good and bad, so that when we do find the rhythm of life, we don't go to the extremes. We just flow forward with
Yeah.
all the experience that we've had, and we understand why we've had it, what it was here to teach us, and what we're meant to do with it. But it's immersing ourselves into life and living it and knowing that you're never alone.
Never. And there isn't fear in that
Yeah.
zone. There is the knowing is a sense of a gift
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you learn over time to trust.
Yes.
And you learn to welcome the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts that are giving the guidance. And they may come when you're taking a walk out in nature. And they may come when you are gazing at your favorite tree. And I'm with you about trees and
Mm-hmm.
friendships with trees.
Yes.
I've had trees that I had a close friendship with, and when they picked up whatever unfortunate disease, it was a very sad
Mm-hmm.
experience. The tree that provided the story for Oscar's discovery of his cure for his cancer, that slippery elm tree, a
Mm.
tree that's on the endangered species list in our yard, is the oldest tree in our village, and we protect that tree, and
Yes.
that tree has the gift of the product that was used way back in the days of the American Revolution, where the sap, the bark was removed from the slippery elm tree, and the bark, what the white strip of the bark was then chopped up into a gruel, and hot water then made it into like an oatmeal, and this is what kept the troops alive.
Right.
And
Right.
the Native Americans have
Yes.
been using this for some years, but now the trees have this rich gift of
Mm-hmm.
healing. And unfortunately, our pharmaceutical companies have over harvested
Yeah.
these trees. And so here, can you imagine what are the chances of having a tree on an endangered species list in your
Yes.
front yard, and then to find out you've two more in your front yard, and then to have a patch of saplings, seedlings going into saplings that our dog Oscar would just pull on those green leaves, and it restored him
Yes.
in
Yes.
front of our eyes. We're seeing the beautiful experience
Mm-hmm.
of life, healing, and the joy of discovering
Yes.
this truth. And I
Mm-hmm.
know, Sarah, you are, with your deep connection to the spiritual, the significance to the highest power, that the answers to life's problems are all around us. We just need to discover them.
Be willing to allow, right? Because
Yes.
if we can't dictate, we can't order, right? We
Yes.
can't, this is something that you're willing to allow the experience, sometimes good or bad, because there's something to be learnt from it, right?
Always.
And we're always, even it's discover our strength, our courage, our abilities,
Yes.
right? If things happen to us, but when we change it to happening for us,
Yeah.
right? And then we look at, okay, had that never happened, I never would have discovered I could do
Mhm.
X, Y, and Z, or
Right.
I felt this way, or I had this gift, or I could help people in that way, right? We're
Yes.
redirected for a reason. And sometimes we're meant to have X, Y, and Z experiences in life. So then when we finally get to our path, our calling, we understand what all those experiences were for. They were to prepare us for the day that we step into our meaningful purpose.
Yes. And that's where we will serve.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean you can't serve along the way in the other
Yeah.
experiences, but
Oh,
we
yes.
find the ultimate where we go,
Yes.
I am home. I'm
Yes.
coming up on 14 years of podcasting,
Wow.
and in June will be 13 years of my own network. Other than raising
Congratulations.
children, thank you. Other than raising children, there is nothing else that I have given so much dedication to and felt so much more meaning, because you can't do this and have people like you on sharing your experiences, sharing the depth of your very being, showing people how they can open up and see things differently, feel things differently. You can't do this. I've done 3,000 shows. You can't do this without it having an effect on you. And that's the thing. I had no idea when somebody asked me to uh, be a podcast host on her network. And I just, well, what's a podcast? That's back in 2012, didn't know much about that, but I was willing to try. And I think that is something we're forgetting as human beings, is that you're not meant to stay status quo. You are meant to learn. You're meant to grow. You're meant to discover. You're meant to stay wondrous. You're
Yes.
meant to be open to receive. Right? And it isn't about boxing and compartmentalize. It's about the air and the sky and the freedom, the fluidity of life.
And that is why I am a forever believer in the potential for humanity. And I will say to you, Sarah, that since you know about the very difficult population that I work within, there are times when, as we know, um, some cases are concerning so many such powerful people or such wealthy
Yes.
people that the authorities say, I can't take that case because of them worrying about losing their job
Or
or
family.
yes, and in the work that I do, there are very, very serious security incidents of being run off the road, people coming and
Mhm.
cutting off electricity, at a time so that the house is dark so they can come into the house. All kinds of atrocious
Yes.
things that I've lived through. But one case that I had when there were 21 incidences of corruption that uh, people needed to be held accountable for. And when I was told I can't take that, that person there contributed to my campaign.
Hmm.
I can't take this case because that man gave me my colonoscopy. And the list went on. I can laugh now, but I looked at this person I had known for a long time and had considered him to be, and he is a good man, but he just said, I can't trust the sheriff. I can't. All of a sudden, all
Yes.
of the blocks were. So here we are facing life today, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Mm-hmm.
all of our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I was going to try my best to, since we weren't going to be able to have the feds come in and do the work, at least not then, I decided that I was going to start working within them and bring in, just as you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
my spiritual energy,
Yeah.
my whole process of using my mental, my emotional, and
Mm-hmm.
spiritual intelligence. And so, under guise, I took on a project in this location, and it was to get the sewer petition signed by 70% of the people. Now, okay, we can smile at that too, because it's really how you can do creative, fun things
Mm-hmm.
through a really tedious role. But I had a chance to meet everyone in this
Yeah.
village by needing their signature. But what I wanted to mention was being around the people that I had known who had done all of this. And they were smug as a bug, knowing that the
Mm.
case wasn't going anywhere. And they're
Aha.
looking at me like, you are so foolish. Look what you've done. And here I was there saying, well, let's work on an ethics code, and I was
Yes.
bringing in
Yes.
all
Yes.
of the things that people in this village were saying to me. Why don't we have this?
Hmm.
Why is it that this is happening? Or why is it that there was a deal for the water? Proceeds from the water company to go into the pockets of
Yeah.
two people. So I had the experience of
Hmm.
being as I am beside these people who knew I knew. And I would watch them. They were highly anxious. And this was over a 6-year period of time. So this
Mm.
was a, a time of I had to commit
Yeah.
to share my love, believing in the possibility that could their hearts be warmed?
You're right.
Could they step into the real zone
Hmm.
of connection?
Yes.
Or were they just going to say, well, I have this side deal. I can think about, money laundering through this website, and this will be my retirement plan. All of these other ideas were more important to them, but here I was
Mm.
advocating. So there were moments that I will tell you that I felt there was a longing within some that
Hmm.
they could be a person who could be that way, but they had lived for so long in this
Yes.
other role
Right.
that it was too frightening. And
Hmm.
I would say things like, there's still time to come clean.
Hmm.
And these are things that the experts in aggressive narcissists say, don't ever do that because
Yeah.
they'll just come at you. But
Oh,
I
yes.
couldn't help but want to do that because I wanted to see what was it that was holding them so, so affixed to a way of living that was not
Knowing it was wrong, knowing it
wrong,
was wrong, or been
knowing.
not having the, you can blame fear so much,
Yes.
right? If everybody comes together, courage magnifies. But was it complacency or comfortability where they were, right?
Yes. And also the intimacy of
Mm.
being able to be close to our Creator, to
Yeah.
feel like that it's such a deeply spiritual experience. We have deer in our backyard, and we
Hmm.
we feed them, and I know where you live, you have all kinds
Yes,
of
I've deer
animals.
walking through my garden. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's good and bad parts to that.
Yes. I don't plant flowers, they eat
No,
them.
you don't. Precisely, thank goodness they don't like herbs, so
Yeah, yeah.
we can do things like that. But the deer, at times when I would just be studying them, and they got to realize that I was interested in getting to know them. I
Hmm.
wanted to watch them and how they were with each other and how they were observing me. And over time, I
Hmm.
can remember I was out making the Christmas wreath, and I'm one of these who likes to use the fresh greens, and so I, have this frame and I put all of these things in, and before I knew it, they were walking down and observing me as
Hmm.
to what is she doing now?
Yeah.
So, so those moments of uh, of being able to have that intimacy. So
Yes.
I did not see these individuals that were so cohesive
Hmm.
in their criminal choices. My alleging of their criminal choices. They they were missing those moments of connectedness or wanting to get to know the sweetness.
Yes.
They say they are, and
Hmm.
they imitate. but they're being held back for many reasons. So there is a sorrow in watching, really. There's a grief.
Mm.
And I have this as I look at the world today, and I am for a long time now have had a sense of grief as I watch how we treat each other,
I know.
and
Oh, I know.
um, and there is no, if it's a temporary relief that some people get by releasing some of their own sorrows by hurting others, it just
It's a
creates
pattern. It's a
a deep
pattern.
well.
It's a pattern in their DNA. It's a pattern in their ancestral DNA. It's a condition in which they're brought up in. 2 years ago, I produced a book called Our Forgotten Children, an anthology around the awareness of raising children and what we need to do differently. And the reason I wanted to do that is that I firmly believe that the way we raise children produces dysfunctional adults. And I think that if we actually fed the essence of our children, nurtured, give them the tools, the structure, the building blocks to build on their own vision, we would have a much better world that we live in. And hurt people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's what they know, it's repeating patterns. But I think what we're seeing right now, all the opulence and all the worst of the worst of the worst of humanity is being thrown in our face right now. And I look at it this way. 8 years ago, the universe gave me a saying. I'm going to shake you up, to wake you up, for you to step up and change it up and grow up vibrationally to a higher vibration, but also grow up as a human race. We've become rather spoilt brats. We've lost this
Yeah.
word of gratitude. We don't know what community is anymore.
Right.
It's me, myself, and I. So we've become very narcissistic. And then we're hungry and we're lonely and we don't understand why, because we're meant to be connected. We are
Yes.
meant to be an orchestra, each in our own strength, playing together harmoniously, transcending that music out as an invitation. And I think this is what's people are now, the soul, the hearts, and the spirits are waking up to. I don't want that. I don't want that as much as it's trying to force itself down my throat. I don't want that. I want something different. And we see it in our children. I've got three millennials. They're all living their lives very differently. And the way they're raising their children very differently. And I think we're in a time period of extreme change. And I do firmly believe, and this is coming from all my spiritual messengers and messages, is that that dawn of awakening. It's
Yeah.
they've been turning the volume up on us for so long, and now that volume is just going to scream up. And we had to see what was wrong. We had to come together to stand up against it. We had to look at it and say it's no longer hiding beneath the rug. It's
Yeah.
in our faces. It's decadent and deceitful and dreadful. And what are we going to do about it? And
Yes.
that is that we are not going to tolerate that shoot anymore. We are going to start using kindness, caring, consideration, cohesiveness, collaboration, and step
Yes.
into love. But we have to be the love if we want to
Yeah.
share the love. So people are now waking up to that heart, that soul, that spirit. And there are still the resistors, but the more and more people that do that, it becomes less intimidating and more like maybe there's something in that. So we owe it to ourselves to awaken. We owe it to ourselves to embrace the spirit, the source, the energy, the love and be the peace that we seek, because that's the only way we're going to save life on this planet.
I'm with you in every way, and I love how you articulated who you are and your vision of where we are and where we're going. I too firmly believe, wholeheartedly believe, that this moment is the dawn of an
Yes,
awakening. And in years
yes.
to come, historians will say, what happened? And all of
Hmm.
a sudden, people started awakening, realizing, oh my goodness, all of those choices,
Mm,
all of those patterns that we just accepted as finality are not
yeah.
acceptable. And we're going to need to help each other, those of us who are now committed and are putting energy into this new
Hmm.
path. We're going to need to encourage each other so that hope is there on the horizon when there are
Yes.
setbacks. And the setbacks are merely moments of training. I think one of the greatest things I've learned in talking to people a lot about this um, is realizing how sensitive humanity is
Hmm.
to the feeling of being rejected
Yes, yes. Hmm.
and the fear of it,
Yes.
and what we will do to avoid
Yeah, I know.
the possibility. Okay. And so I am in this new book, I was determined to put out the reality that I have learned, that guess what, without tons of rejection I would not be here. I
Precisely,
would
precisely.
not have the
No.
understanding. I wouldn't know what happens in that organization. I wouldn't know that each time things don't work out is merely a moment of training,
Yes.
because what's ahead is not only better, but you're going to have an understanding about how life comes together, and you
Hmm.
can share that wisdom so broadly with others.
Yes.
I am I have gotten active about this on my Facebook page, where I am all about encouraging people to step forward. And my one of my most recent posts was, uh, if we're going to do this, my friends,
Hmm.
then we first of all have to understand that the mind leads first. We're going to have to
The mind
develop
gives, yes,
mental
it
toughness.
removes the barriers,
Yes,
right? Yes.
mental toughness. Now,
Mm,
we can't be mentally tough if we don't have the underpinning
right.
of our
Yes.
intelligence.
Yes.
Because in order to be mentally tough, we have to really be able to look at what happened calmly and not
Mm,
reject ourselves or reject the other person, but just take life straight up and
hmm.
say, okay, let's sort this out.
Hmm.
Where's the good in this? Where
Yes.
are we going to grow as a nation? Where are
Mm,
we going to grow as a people?
hmm.
And holding ourselves accountable, meaning we're forgiving
Yes.
ourselves. And that's one of the hard things, because when we are faced with, okay, I didn't do that as well as I might have, especially with what I know today, then we forgive ourselves, realizing that no one is perfect, and we have to forgive ourselves, certainly, for not being perfect.
We
So,
operate on what we know in the now,
yes,
right? And
yes,
what people are operating on what they know. When you know better, you do better,
yes,
right? When you know better, you understand where they were coming from. Doesn't mean you condone the action, but
right,
you don't condemn the person.
right,
But are they willing to take onus themselves? And I
right,
think, they along with self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others and accountability is that onus of my own action that, yes, I did do that. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know where I was coming from. That willingness to go in and go, why did I do that?
yes,
Why did I react that
yes,
way? And when we're looking at so many people, and then I was talking to you about Puerto Vallarta
yes,
just before the show, where my family is right now, unfortunately witnessing all of this around them. And they
yes,
have children there, so quite terrifying, right? And you think of how many war zones there are around the world. How many people are going to be in trauma, not necessarily from that, but certainly in war zone places? How many people are then going to carry vengeance? How many people are going to carry mistrust? And what we're
yes,
doing is we're scarring.
yes,
In this this nation and next, unless we're all willing to come together to heal. And that goes back to what's happening to us, changing it to make it happen for us. Yes, this was awful. I went through this, but how, look, I'm survived. Who am I today? I'm not the same person as before. What aptitudes did I learn? But the one thing I cannot forget and I cannot let go of is compassion for
Yeah.
myself or for others. Because what we do as human beings, we become hardened, this hard shell, so it'll never happen to me again. Who's hurting you? You are. Because you're not allowing yourself to immerse yourself into the joy of life, the wonder of life, the beauty of life, because you're so busy protecting yourself. The more you do immerse in love and light and harmony and joy and gratitude and giving, the more you actually fortify yourself. So we have to understand we can be cautious, but we cannot put armor on ourselves because then we're stopping ourselves from experiencing, and that means we're hurting ourselves.
And Sarah, one thing I would like to be sure to share is that I've realized that a lot of people are afraid to feel.
Oh, yes.
And so they put on their armor and say, never again.
Hmm.
But what they don't know, and I share this from my heart to yours and your listeners, is that feelings change.
Yes.
That's one thing that people may not realize, that the intensity of the discomfort or the anguish or the
Hmm.
disappointment is not going to be there forever.
No, especially if you're willing to let go.
Yes. And to let in
Mm.
the
Hmm.
light, to let in the
Yes.
light.
I call that the sunny side of the street. On this other side of the street, you have all the people like yourself with solution, with skills, with tools to help people on their journey of life. On this side of the street, you've got the people in the darkness, in despair. We can't help them until they come out onto that center street, right? Because that free will, that willing to participate in their own life, they're willing to say, I am ready to receive. Then all the various people are there to help them on their journey, not do it for them, help them with the skills and tools that they need to apply themselves. But we can't come into the darkness to get you. This is part of your life's journey, is to come out of that darkness into the light, even though you feel rather blinded at first. All right, your eyes will adjust and allow people to help you on your journey because in turn you will be on that other side of the street for someone else down the road. But until you're willing to participate in your own healing, nobody else can help you.
That is so beautifully said. And I love the analogy of the sides of the street. Thank you for sharing that.
Sunlight is all around us, and and then a lot of people talk about darkness as being evil, and there's a darkness that holds you back, that clamps you. And there's a darkness where, I was in the darkness for quite a few years in my life, and I could see the light. And it was like, do I want to go out there into that? What I had escaped from. And eventually, as I have to go out, and it was quite blinding at first. And then I felt shadows chasing me. And then I realized those aren't shadows. Those are contours to the light. They're giving shape to the light. They're giving meaning to the light. I can go into the darkness now, for I am the light, and I can see very clearly what it is I am meant to see. But I had to be willing to take that journey to understand that.
And what prompted you to take the journey? What was the impetus?
I think it
Yeah.
was if I don't get out into the light soon, I'm going to be apathetic, which is worse because then you have no feeling you don't care. And that I could feel coming on, and I knew I had to get out into the light and face it before I lose myself completely.
And that's when the rose in bud became the rose in bloom.
Exactly. But the point is, we must be willing to take the journey of discovery.
Yes,
This is called self-discovery wisdom. The
yes.
wisdom is there. It's ready to download, to comfort you, to embrace you, to show you the path forward. That's part of our discovery. But we've got to be willing to take the journey.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people, like yourself, you can say that, you're very analytical, obviously, with the work that you're doing. There's an awful lot of analysis in that. And a lot of people think, well, analytical people can never think spiritual. No.
Mhm.
How many scientists today are understanding what spirituality is?
Oh, yes.
Understanding that the actual measure of energy, the measure of an essence in a person, and their scientists broken their science right open. So don't box yourself in saying, well, I'm just that and I can never think this. No, it means actually that can ask the right questions to
Yeah.
understand what it is you're seeing and feeling.
When the energy is a fire within you,
Hmm.
you care more, you bring more into every situation, every task, every
Yes.
project. You want to do your best, and it just is, and that's where the light is just coming out and shining. It's it's a beautiful thing, watching it happen, and it is in all levels of work. It's
Yes.
all, it's all everywhere. So I share in your excitement about this dawn of an
Mm.
awakening at the
It's
same time.
happening.
Yes.
We know that in order to have a clean house, we've got to get down on our hands and knees, so to speak, right? And this is what we're doing right now. We're cleaning house. So much so it's being reflected on TV shows. I've just watched the third season of The Night Manager, literally around the subject of corruption in government, right? So
Sure.
we're seeing this more and more where people are becoming, where those agents that you talked about, la la
Yeah.
la la, no, no, I'm sorry, you can't escape anymore.
Right.
It's on the billboard,
Yeah.
right? Now you do have to step up. You have
Yes.
to make a choice. Which
Yes.
side of the coin do you want to be on?
Right. And how do they want to be remembered?
Yes.
And I do believe in, you're bringing up something that's related to when I was trained to become a family psychologist, and I was working with children and families. And one of the ways that I was able to interest the dads to come into the session is I explained to them about this stage of life called integrity versus despair. And
Mm.
that while right now, today, you
Hmm.
may be feeling that, what, how can this be so important, to your child?
Hmm.
He sees that you're busy with this or that. So you have plenty of excuses and you're okay with that today. You can sleep well at night today with that. But there will come a time when you will not.
Yes.
You will be reminded again and again of a missed opportunity.
Hmm.
So this is an investment in
Yeah.
your feelings of being a solid dad, a
Yeah.
dad of integrity, a man of integrity, that you could put aside the time to get to know your child better, to get to know your wife better. Do you know what? I went on and on about it so much that they just said, all right, I'm coming in. And I
And
said,
again, that is something, when we look at our dads that haven't been around, when we look at men in general, the way they treat people, it's what they've been taught. It's in their DNA for how many generations, how many thousands of years. It's not going to change overnight. We have to lovingly show them another path.
yes,
We have to, most of all, show them how to love themselves from the
yes,
inside out and understand what love is, right? It's not about machoism. It's not about having the most. It's not about, the most followers and being rich or being important, which we're seeing right now. The
yes,
people who are the richest and the most biggest
yes,
tyrants are the smallest people inside,
yes,
right? And it's because they never
yes,
face that little boy. They never face
right,
that discontent. Instead, it's everybody else's fault and I
right.
want, I want, I want. So if you don't want to end up like that and you really want to be a man of courage, respect, dignity, of contribution, be willing to work on yourself.
Mhm.
That isn't, wussy. That is actually
Yeah,
strength.